All right, guys. So I want to make sure you're ready for your quiz, even though I'm not there today. Hopefully, you get to watch this video tonight, and you will be prepared for tomorrow's quiz. So you are going to have the quiz tomorrow, even though I was not there in class. You were supposed to complete it. So right now, what I want to do is go over the study guide, vocab term by vocab term. We'll even go over the essay questions at the end, just to make sure you understand everything, so that you are duly prepared to complete the quiz tomorrow. All right, so take out your study guides. If you have to pause it to get them out. But here we go. Let's go over the vocab terms. If you need to fix it, fix it. If you have any questions, email me once we're done. Watch this video as many times as you need to review. So let's get started on the vocab terms, okay? The Articles of Confederation, start with the first term. It was a document adopted by the Continental Congress in 1777 and adopted in 1781. It was the first form of government that the new nation would be under. Okay, it was in place just after the Revolutionary War, but as we discussed in class, there were a lot of problems with it, defects with it, so to speak, which we went over in class. Next term, Constitutional Convention was a meeting held in Philadelphia in 1787. The original plan for the meeting was to change or fix the Articles of Confederation, but eventually they realized they need to completely scrap it and create a new government. The two plans suggested at the convention. The first one, Virginia Plan, proposed by Edmund Randolph and James Madison. It called for a bicameral legislature, so two houses. House of Representatives based on population, Senate, everybody gets 2 votes. Okay, so that's how that was what was proposed. The New Jersey Plan, proposed by William Patterson, called for a unicameral legislature, so one house, extremely similar to the Articles of Confederation. It didn't allow for an advantage to be had for any state, regardless of size. So everybody got 1 vote. Again, very similar to the Articles of Confederation and one of the primary problems with that form of government. We then have the Great Compromise, just the compromise between the two plans. It was a compromise between the Virginia Plan and the New Jersey Plan. It had one house as the House of Representatives and the other house as the Senate with 2 votes. So you have the possibility for larger states to have an advantage in the House of Reps and the Senate to be where there's equality amongst all states. Then you have the 3/5 compromise. We talked in depth about the problems with slavery and how they didn't suggest it in the Constitution because they didn't want to, because they were afraid that the states wouldn't pass it. So the 3/5 compromise was a decision that counted 3/5 of the slave population for representation purposes. So you'd have 5 whites equal 3, 5 blacks equal 3 whites in terms of representation, which gave the slaveholding states more of a voice in Congress because they were afraid that the non-slave owning states would override anything that they wanted to do. We then have federalism. Federalism is just a term. Don't get it confused with federalist. Okay, they may be similar, but they are different in terms of definition. Federalism is when power is shared between the federal and state governments. You then have federalist, next term. They are people that supported the Constitution. So again, federalism is a type of government. Federalist is a person. Anti-federalist, people against ratification of the new Constitution. We then have the Federalist Papers, which we looked at in class. They were essays written to gain support for ratification of the new Constitution, and then you also had anti-federalist papers written to try and stop people from wanting to ratify the Constitution. Then you have the Bill of Rights. It's the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution. Remember, that was suggested after 9 states already ratified the Constitution. By that point in time, those other 4 states were holding out for something. And we did discuss that the Federalists and Anti-Federalists both agreed that there was a need for a Bill of Rights. So once they instituted that Bill of Rights, you could then have ratification of the entire Constitution by all 13 states. Just give me one moment to get a drink. All right. On to the people. Alexander Hamilton, he was a critic of the Articles of Confederation, a founder of the Federalist Party. James Madison was an expert in the area of politics, one of the most ablest delegates at the convention, as we said. He and Thomas Jefferson both agreed that the primary defect in the Constitution was the lack of a Bill of Rights. Now, why would they say it's the primary defect? Both of these men, Jefferson and Madison, believed philosophically that there are unalienable rights, like we talked about with John Locke. Okay, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Okay, property, as we discussed, kind of replaced in the Declaration. They believe that everybody should have these rights regardless. So them not seeing it in the Constitution was its primary defect, because they believed everyone, regardless of who they are, should have those basic rights. George Washington, he was selected to serve as the president of the Constitutional Convention, and then obviously a little bit down the road would become our nation's first president. All right, so let's take a look at the Federalist and Anti-Federalist. You need to be able to compare and contrast those two. Let's start with the Federalists. Okay, the Federalists believed in the Constitution the way it was written. They believed in a strong national government. They also favored a loose interpretation of the Constitution, which means, the way they view it is flexible. If it doesn't say it, but they think it could be assumed that that's what they mean, that you can go ahead and do that. Their supporters were mainly the upper class people, lawyers and merchants. You have Anti-Federalists. They believed in a limited national government. They were afraid of mob rule, so rule by, back up. They were afraid of rule by one person, a tyrant, okay, someone who has absolute control. That was their main fear, kind of going back to what they had with Great Britain. They were, their supporters were basically the middle and lower class people, the working class, farmers, tradespeople, okay, and that was their main fear, is having the government controlled by those rich few people, okay, like those lawyers and merchants, because they give so much money to the government. Similarities between the two: they both agreed that there was a need for a Bill of Rights. They both appealed to reason and emotion when it came to trying to gain support for their side. We then have the Articles of Confederation, U.S. Constitution, compare and contrast. So make sure you're looking at that now. The Articles of Confederation, let's start there. They believed in one branch of government. The Confederation Congress was the main power. The states had more power than the national government. That posed a problem. We know that you needed a majority of the states, about 9, for a bill to pass, and you needed all 13 for ratification. There was no national executive. There wasn't one singular person in charge, but the national government did not have much power at all. The states had the majority, and that happened to be the problem. Okay, they could not pass any laws. They couldn't enforce laws. They couldn't collect taxes, which was a primary defect, as we talked about, because they can't pay back their debts. Within the U.S. Constitution, okay, it was shared powers, split powers between the state and federal level governments. You had 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Okay, you just needed a simple majority to pass a law. Okay, and the powers were evenly split. And the national government did have the right to enforce laws, so they were able to collect taxes. That was one of the big differences. Similarities between the two: you had various branches of government. You had national, you had state. Okay, not too many similarities between the two. Just focus on the fact that there were various levels in terms of national and state level governments. Okay, all right, just give me 1 second. Now, I did say at the beginning of the year that I'm not going to have you focus too much on memorizing dates, but you're in history class, you got to remember dates at some point. So, there are only 3 dates that I want you to remember. 1781 is when the Articles of Confederation take effect. 1787 is the year the Constitution of the United States was signed. 1791 is when the Bill of Rights is ratified. Those are the only years that you need. So don't worry about any of the other years. Don't worry about anything else for those years, just the ones that I just stated. Okay? Now let's take a look at the essay questions. I know in the study guide it says 3, there are 3 the below, and 2 will be on the test. It's a typo. It's my fault. The 2 ones that are on the study guide, those are the 2 that are going to be on the test or quiz. So you don't have to necessarily study beyond that. So yeah, this is really a huge advantage to you. The ball's in your court. Like I said, this quiz isn't going to be difficult. I'm giving the answers pretty much right now. So let's take a look at those essay questions. So, starting with the first one. Why did some states think it was necessary to add a Bill of Rights to the Constitution? Okay, remember for these essay questions, open-ended I should say, um, minimum 5 sentences, please. Make sure it's no less. I will read more, but I will take points off if it's less. All right, so focus, find 1 or 2 points to really focus on. So for this first one, why did they think it was necessary to add a Bill of Rights? Main reason is they wanted protection from the national government. Because people were so fearful of a powerful national government, they wanted rights in place to protect them from an overpowering national government. Not that it would happen, but just in case they had the ability to be protected. Another reason why, the belief in natural rights. Everybody should have some sort of rights. This goes all the way back to the English Bill of Rights. Okay, it's very old. It's philosophical. They want to be protected. Okay, so 2 points you should really focus on. They wanted to be protected from an overpowering national government, and they believed everyone should have these natural rights. Okay, and make sure you elaborate on those. Explain, remember, minimum 5 sentences. All right, and the last one, please explain the strengths and weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Okay, now this one, not too many strengths, a lot of weaknesses, obviously. So let's take a look at the weaknesses first. That's the easy part, and then we'll go into strengths. The weaknesses, national government couldn't enforce laws, couldn't collect taxes. Okay, there was barely any power in the national level government. This did not give them the ability to pay back any debts, which when we looked at our RST that we did together, we noticed that because they can't pay back their debts, they have zero credit with any other countries because they can't even take care of their own people, let alone get a loan from another country and actually end up paying it back. So those are the weaknesses. Now the strengths, few and far between, but they do exist. One of the strengths that we could say lied with the Articles of Confederation, which you could also debate is a weakness, was the amount of power in the states. Now remember that people were fearful of a powerful national government, so when they created the Articles of Confederation, they wanted to make sure that the people had a majority of the power. Now that was a strength because the voice of the people is heard. There's not some figurehead sitting like in Washington, D.C. or any other capital that is controlling everything. The people get to have a say in what goes on. Another strength we could say is that there's no singular person again the head of the national government. There was the Confederation Congress. It was a group of people. So there wasn't a single person that was in control. That was another strength. Okay, so those are really the only things you can really get for that essay question. So those two will be on the quiz. Answer one of them, minimum 5 sentences. Now that you watch this video, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Even though I'm not there, I will answer your email up to like 9 o'clock tonight. I will be in tomorrow. We will have the quiz tomorrow. So please make sure you're prepared. You'll have about 5 minutes at the beginning of class, like we usually do, to review and prepare for the quiz. If you're not in tomorrow, we'll take the quiz Monday. All right, so please make sure you are prepared. Again, any questions, email me. All right, I hope you guys were well behaved for the sub. Hopefully I receive a good note when I come back. All right, and again, any questions, email me, and I'll see everyone tomorrow.